Right, exactly.
Okay, so finally I got myself organized,
I
and
know,
I'm
right?
here with Dr. Lori Eanes in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which I now know how to spell, by the way.
Yeah.
But we won't test me today on camera.
Okay. Yeah.
I just wanted to say I've been practicing. So what I really want to talk about at this kitchen table for the youngins is to, one, remind you that this is really for consumption for people who may not talk about this conversation, and they're maybe not our usual target audience in medicine. We're looking, if we're trying to prevent chronic disease, we're usually talking to people too late. And so I'm hoping today we can talk a little bit to the younger crowd, the people who are making the habits. But first, I want to start at the beginning about I called it a sugar-free chat with Dr. Lori. Did you see that in the Zoom? I entitled it Sugar-Free Chat.
I saw that.
And I want to say why.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about your detox for sugar, and you're going to have to give me the right name in a minute. But I want to tell you that for the last week, since I last saw you and we talked about sugar and the evils of sugar, which I well know, and on an intellectual level, I'm well committed to getting off sugar. But this past week, I decided, let me just start. Why do I have to wait for an official start date? That's a sign of being ready, truly ready. Well, I can't tell you how difficult it was. It was, well, I took the sugar quiz, and then of course it did confirm that I am, let me see what it said again, fully
addicted.
Yes, did it use the word addicted? It probably did. Fully addicted. Oh, I think it's in my diary here. Yeah, fully addicted to sugar.
Yeah.
And so, I knew that, but my question is, are you ready to change? And that's what I really want to talk about, the commitment to change and your program and how you get people ready to change and recognizing that they need to change, because that's a huge first step.
Truly. Yeah, it is. But I'm going to tell you, you have taken the first step. So the quiz helps you get to the first step of change, and that is acknowledgement. Acknowledging that there is a problem. There is a situation that needs to be addressed. You know, we can't change what we don't face. We can't fix what we don't face. And so when we at least see it in front of us. Now, you said something very profound. I know all the horrors or all the bad things about sugar. And here's what I tell everyone: knowledge. We all know. We know we should drink more water. We know we should eat less sugar, right? We know these. We know we should get more sleep. We know these things, but knowledge is of no value if we don't practice what we know.
Amen.
Right? So the first step is the acknowledgement that, you know what, I really should. I hate to use the shoulds, but I really should be changing some things. Now, the only thing that takes us past the should and actual doing is it having greater meaning for us. And that's what I get to when I do the Break the Sugar Habit program.
Break the sugar habit. That's what I was looking for.
Break the sugar habit, because it's a habit, is what it is. And there's some emotional reasons why it's a habit, and there's some physiological reasons why it's a habit. And so we get to understanding those components of it. But before we get to that, I work with you as we're doing our weekly Zoom meetings with how you are going to break this habit. I work with you to help you understand your why. Why does this matter?
Yes.
Why is it important to you? And the biggest way I can help people and show them is, for everything in life, we have a plan. Usually, those of us who are achievers in some way. So whether we plan to buy our first car, we've got to create a plan for how we're going to get it. Whether or not we're planning on what kind of career we're seeking. And these are in our early years, right? We kind of start thinking about, whether or not, we're partnership children, family, how important that is to us and how much we want that. And we start acting on that and creating a plan to achieve it, to have it. And even whether it's buying our first home, we could be apartment dwellers, but when we decide that we want something, we create a plan for it.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I have found that we don't create a plan for is how we age and great health.
How we age and what?
Great health.
Great health, yes.
Great health. That's sort of a come what may plan.
Yes.
Right? Right?
And you know what, I think there may be a little bit of, well, what can I do about it? It's, it's my genes, age happens to everybody, it's those kinds of things that we give up our power, our individual power.
Mm-hmm. I agree, and I think that's because that's how we've been taught and that's what we've been told.
And that's easy also.
Well, and it's easy to resign ourselves to, it happened to my mama, it happened to my daddy, and it's gonna happen to me.
Yeah.
But when we look at the study of epigenetics, which is, how our genes impact our well-being, how our health and our well-being, we now know from the studies that our genes are actually only 10% responsible for our health.
Yeah.
90% of how we age has to do with our individual lifestyle, our habits, and our behaviors. And how they came to that conclusion is they looked at identical twins who had the exact same genes, right?
Yeah.
And so what we know is identical twins often age differently. They shouldn't age differently, right? Exact same genes.
Genes were everything, yeah.
Exactly. So we know that maybe one was a smoker and the other one wasn't. So smoking impacts how we age. One may have been a worrier. Okay. Stress and worry impacts how we age. One may have had a certain diet of all the wrong foods, fast foods, convenience foods, denatured foods, and they age faster. So whether it's actually our environment, the things in our environment, whether it's our individual stressors, whether it is the foods we eat, these are all impacting how we age. And all of those things that I just named, we have control over.
Yeah. So now, given that, how do you sell this to a 20-year-old? Or for that matter, a 12-year-old? But, how do we make these healthy habits sooner? Because getting on the bandwagon is one thing when you're 60, but it's another thing when it's so much more meaningful when you have a whole life ahead of you and you are living a healthy lifestyle for 60 years before you're a senior citizen, rather than waiting until you can see age coming in on you and you're trying to get on the bandwagon like my friends and I, we're seeing there is a why that is very concrete. We don't feel well, we feel sluggish, or we're overweight, or we are having absolute fear over some diagnoses, some pre-existing conditions that we hope to never have. How do we, that's motivation. And that's one kind of how I'm sure your program will deal with people in that space, but I would love to know how we can make that motivation hit people earlier.
Well, I agree, because when we're 60 and over, I gotta put myself in that category.
Which neither of us is, just for the record.
Right. Exactly.
But just hypothetically.
Hypothetically speaking. So that is easy. And one of my clients that I have, and the reason she came to me and she said, this is my why. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. Yes. And even though she had, not major health diagnosis, but she did have some things that were cropping up, hypertension, her weight, she was gaining weight. And, she was recognizing that both of those things, when your health starts to decline, that becomes a stressor in your life.
Absolutely.
Right? So she was constantly thinking about and worried about her well-being. And so it was easier for her.
Mhm.
Now, I think our 20-year-olds are a little bit more difficult because they get to run on auto drive and great, and good
Yeah.
overall health in
Yeah.
general, right?
Mhm.
So 20 years olds are a little difficult. But where I find that their greatest influence is from their family circle
Mhm.
or their circle of friends, of course, by the time they get 20. But if you see your parent or your auntie or your favorite uncle really taking great care of themselves, their health, their well-being, and you see what they're doing, even if you don't adopt it right away, it sticks
Yeah,
because you get to see that.
definitely.
Now,
Your social group.
yep. So I do think that group is a little harder to reach with this program because they are more influenced by those around them.
Mhm.
They just,
Yeah.
or what's on social media, right?
Yes.
And they're more of the observer as opposed to the participator.
Yes.
But the 40 and over,
Okay.
that's when you start to notice some changes.
So is that your target group with break the
So
sugar habit?
essentially, yeah, exactly. So 40
Okay.
and over.
Mhm.
Because that's when you start to recognize that the body is not what it once was.
Yeah, it takes a
And
little more TLC.
if you haven't invested in a system of well-being,
Yeah.
your daily habits, what you're eating, and just how your body is performing. So if you've picked up the pounds,
Mhm.
this,
Mhm.
and most of us, any of us, don't really love that fact.
Yeah.
And the why for me is understanding when you gain weight, you just see that you need a larger size, right? When you gain weight, I see what's happening on the inside as
Yeah.
a scientist, as a medical professional, as a physician.
Mhm.
I'm thinking about, what's happening to that liver?
Yeah.
Oh, more and more fatty liver. Well, the liver is starting to get fat deposits, right? And not function optimally. What's going to happen with the heart and cholesterol levels? Well, that's going to rise.
Yeah.
And we do know with weight gain, everything is impacted from our
Mhm.
digestion. Why do we have so many digestive problems in this country? And everyone needs the purple pill.
Exactly. I've been wondering, yes.
Yeah.
Everybody's needing probiotics as a conscious, intentional part of their diet.
Right. And so I get that. I understand the probiotics, but probiotics is not the full solution. In fact, it's only a small part of the solution.
Yeah.
But we hear the word probiotics and we think it's everything to our digestion, and it really is not. It's just one component. And if we were eating well all of these years for the last 50 years, we probably would not need probiotics because we get a lot of buildup from the foods that we
Healthy
eat.
whole foods.
Healthy whole foods, the whole grains, the prebiotic foods like asparagus and garlic, and adding those things into our diet that help to build the healthy gut bacteria that we need. So, we don't always need a pill for every problem, but once again, that's how we've been taught and what we've been told.
Definitely. And how we've been groomed to look for a pill for every problem, rather than having a holistic approach to things.
Right.
And having personal responsibility.
I agree. So everything I do in my program, I call it simple solutions.
Yes, I saw that.
The one thing that I feel like medicine, well-being, health, our overload of information has made it much more complicated than it needs to be. And our grandmamas knew this.
Yeah.
When we start looking at our aged population as in over 80, the reason they got to be over 80 is because the habits that they had in their 40s, 50s, and even grew up with, and they developed those habits because they had wholesome foods. They didn't have industrialized foods, processed foods, packaged foods, convenience foods, drive-through, and DoorDash on their steps.
Yes, exactly.
So they, over the years, developed simple habits that allowed their well-being to be sustained into their 80s and 90s.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what I'm noticing about our 80 and 90-year-olds today, because they just have maintained those habits.
They're 80 and 90 for a reason.
They're 80 and 90 for a reason. And it wasn't a pill for every problem. Of course, aging is inevitable. We're all going to age. Yeah. But we don't have to feel old, be old, and perhaps even look old.
Yeah, and age poorly. You know, one of the biggest fears that I think people in our generation have is aging, not just prematurely and poorly, but being alive to see everything break down. I have a friend who says, you don't know what it's like to live beyond your teeth. Which I thought was, so that's only one, you know, your oral cavity is only one of many places where the age sets in. And if it's premature, you live a lot of years of kind of disabled life and reduced activity, reduced well-being. And that's a bit of a tragedy. And so I can imagine that people in their 40s and over nowadays, with the information explosion and the focus on health and well-being and healthy aging, there is a good audience out there for people who want to change their lifestyle, and particularly starting with sugar. So tell me, why are you picking on the sugar?
Right.
Of all the things we could eliminate, I think only recently have I come to see the evils of sugar. You know, I would have thought of a few other things before that. So share about.
So you know what? Here's the story, and this is how I began writing this program, Break the Sugar Habit. COVID was the reason. I was in my clinic, and I was talking to my nurse, and the news was coming about that this was becoming a pandemic. You know, it was day one, probably March something of 2020. And it was really like divine guidance, intervention just came to me, and I looked at her, and I know when it comes to well-being. Now, certainly we were faced with a novel virus no one had ever seen, no human had ever been exposed to before. And what I know about how well-being in general, it's just from the animal species, the strongest survive. Yeah, that's it. So the strongest survive. So then it was like, so what is making Americans so weak? What is it? I mean, we've got every diet out there: keto, paleo, you know, low carbs, no carbs. We've got vegan, vegetarian, we've got every possible so-called healthy diet, and all of those do have their benefits. Yeah. But what is the one thing that is making Americans sick? And it just came to me: sugar.
Making us so vulnerable.
Exactly. And when I looked at what sugar is impacting in our lives, in our health, in our everyday well-being, it's impacting everything. From, of course, we can look at the obvious: weight gain, right? Sugar. Empty calories. And then looking at the physiology, sugar also not only responsible for diabetes, it's also responsible for hypertension. We thought salt was the major culprit, but it actually is sugar that is the major culprit, at least equal to, if not greater than, salt in our diet. Why? Because sugar causes an overload of cortisol, the stress hormone in our bodies, and cortisol raises blood pressure. Cortisol, sugar is also an inflammatory substance. Yeah. So when we eat sugar, it's causing inflammation in our vasculature, and that inflammation can also cause cholesterol to stick in our blood vessels. Okay. Sugar is also responsible for our moods. We eat it, we're up. Don't we know? After we secrete that high dose of insulin that is necessary for the sugar to be absorbed, we go down.
You crash.
We crash. And then we need more of it. And then sugar is also responsible for a direct connection to dopamine, which is our feel-good hormone and the neurotransmitter or neurohormone in the brain. And it causes addictions. I like it and I want it.
Again.
Again and again and again.
Yeah.
Right? So when I looked at the one thing that's in the American diet that is responsible for most of our ills, including indigestion, because I do a whole program on gut health. What sugar does is dismantles, when we eat something sweet, it dismantles our enzymes that are responsible for food digestion. So we eat sugar, we don't have the enzymes to digest our normal meals. And therefore we get the gas, the indigestion, the bloating, the reflux, right? Sugar. Once again, we're back to sugar. All the joint pain that you have, sugar, because it's the number one inflammatory substance in the body. And it depresses our immune system. So back to COVID. When I looked at how am I start with me first. How am I going to get through this thing called a pandemic and not be impacted by the virus? I don't know what I don't know yet, but what I do know is that if I can shore up my immune system in the best way that I know how, and that was getting sugar out of my diet. Now, I will give you a little personal story. I knew I had gained a few pounds, like everyone else, but you know, I don't buy a lot of clothes. I just thought, you know what? The clothes have shrunk because they're old.
I know, don't they do that?
I just want to say.
And not only that, working against change is the rather baffling acceptance of overweight and obesity that does concern me a little bit, that it is an understandable backlash against being unhealthy in the other direction, being too thin, but there does seem to be a kind of lowering of the standards of what a healthy weight is, so that people are gaining more weight than they need to, and they think that's a good thing, especially this younger generation. So that's another conversation. I don't want to get us onto that, but it is. You noticed the change you were saying in yourself over the years.
So let's please make sure that we talk about that, because I give you the history of what happened to weight in this country from the 1950s and when it blossomed into
that's an interesting topic. Yes. When did we start accepting these extra pounds?
And I will give you exactly what happened. And at this stage, I'm going to say, if your doctor is not addressing your weight, he is not, or she is not addressing your health.
Yeah, I agree.
If they are not addressing it, I graph every patient that comes in before they walk out that door. And I make it so that it's not a shame on who you are, but how you can improve your health. And so I graph it. I have all the systems in place now that allow me to look back at where you were and where you are. And you actually get to see that. And then just a simple commentary of, as weight goes up, health goes down.
Goes down, absolutely. And I think, we are not accustomed to wanting accountability on any level, it seems. We're getting accustomed to just letting things happen and pretending we don't know why they're happening. I'm delving into the political realm now, but the point is, I think that the issue around the scale and demonizing the scale is another way to kind of help us to put blinders on to what's really happening to us, to not have accountability for our habits, and to really be vulnerable to the over marketing that we've had, and the fact that we've been geared to eat more and to eat more industrialized food. I like that term because it really is exactly what it is. And we have no way of quickly alerting us that there is a problem, because the scale is demonized and the clothes are bigger, they're growing, that the options are growing. You can look glamorous at any size now, if you choose to,
Yes,
so
yes.
that all of that, I don't think is helpful in the in the truest sense of keeping us as a healthy human race.
Right.
So back to your story. I'm interested to know how
Yeah.
you got to the
Yeah.
sugar.
So I believe, at least I'm hoping, that what makes the greatest impact is one another.
Mm,
So when we get to have the conversation with someone who we can trust, someone who we believe in, someone who we adore in some way, and really can adopt what they're teaching us. You know, wisdom is not being shared, in my opinion, enough. And that's why I'm so glad we're having these kitchen table conversations,
yeah.
because that is how we truly learn.
Mhm.
You can see all the other people on the outside through social media. And even though they're doing great jobs of interacting with people through these platforms that we're doing now, but it's when you really have a conversation with someone
Yeah.
that it
The
begins
heart
to
to heart.
impact. Exactly, that it begins to impact your life. So when I was looking at my own scale, which I walked in the clinic one day and something just said, step on the scale, even though I'm pretty muscular and I train every week, and I've been doing that for 10 years, working with a trainer. I will say, when you wear scrub pants in our profession, which I do sometimes, they're very forgiving. You can just
Yes,
undo that waist and it just
absolutely.
it's sprawling.
There's no
So
proof.
there is, exactly, there is not. So I stepped on the scale and I looked, and it was 20 pounds over, 22 exactly,
What you thought or what you wanted.
than I had ever weighed before.
Oh, wow.
That was
Mhm.
enough for me. Okay, 20 pounds over than I had ever seen on a scale before was
Wow.
enough to get my attention. I mean, I was on the scale and I actually did this. I looked around to
To
make
see.
sure no one was like behind me, around me. I was in the clinic and I
Yes,
was like, OMG, this
right.
is unreal. You have got to do something. So now we're on the beginning of a pandemic. I realize I need to shore up my immune system as much as possible. I do have the COVID protection plan on my
Yes.
website so that you
Uh-huh.
can go on and you can see all the foods that I have researched, all the
Mhm.
supplements that have been shown and researched to build up your immune system.
Mhm.
I did those every single day. And then when I started looking at the one thing in the American diet, sugar, that was impacting so much of our health, from our immune system to all of these diagnoses and diseases that I was giving people, whether it was hypertension, diabetes, cholesterol, fatty liver disease, all of these were, as well as indigestion, was
Mhm.
associated with sugar. Not to
Mhm.
mention how all of the worry and stress of the unknown was about to impact our
Yeah.
emotional well-being, right?
Yeah. It's the
So,
common culprit. I'm seeing it. You're
mhm,
making the point, definitely. And
mhm.
as you're talking, I'm thinking about what is so different about the American diet in 2022 or the Bermudian diet in 2022 from 1922, you know? And
Right.
if I had to name one thing, I think it might be the sugar in our
It
diet.
is, it's the one thing. It is the one thing that changed. Sugar is in everything from infant formula to chapstick. It's
Chapstick.
right. Why do we
Incredible.
need
Who
why do we need
knew?
sugar and chapstick?
Yeah, so we put on more.
Right.
Exactly.
Exactly.
It's incredible.
Right.
Wow.
So it's in every single thing. And then what happened is we went fat free. And that has a lot to do with Eisenhower having a heart attack, and the research at the time, okay, research is always evolving. At the time, they believed it was fat.
Yeah,
It's
for
fat in the
sure.
diet. It's
Mhm.
butter. It's fat in the diet. So around the 1950s, they started doing research about taking fat out of the diet.
Yeah.
And then everything by the 60s, it was low fat,
Yeah.
no fat, low
But you need
fat,
to
no.
make it taste good.
But you need to make it taste good. And how do we do that?
Sugar.
Sugar.
Definitely. And you can see by my reactions that I am very ambivalent about going to rehab. But I'm listening to you.
Yay. Yeah. So sugar was replacing fat in the foods.
Yeah.
And so sugar is actually highly addictive. The more you want of it, the more you want of it. Yeah, and so absolutely. That's what happened with the American diet, and mainly the American diet. I will say that, because when you start looking at other places in the world, they did not do that.
Interesting. Yeah.
They did not do that. And so that is the reason why, we're really
topping the charts.
Exactly. Small percentage of the world's population, but we have more disease and we have greater healthcare costs than any other place in the world.
Yeah.
So when I started looking and researching the one thing, and I give people a simple way to do it. It's a 4-week program. It's a step-by-step.
Good. I want to hear a summary. 4 weeks.
What I do know is what I do first in this, we understand, why is this important to you? For many people who are over the age of 40 or 50, and they're starting to get that first diagnosis of high blood pressure or what we call pre-diabetes, which I say doesn't exist. That's like saying you're a little pregnant.
Yes.
That's not such a thing. So nor is white coat hypertension. Either you are, right? That's not a thing. So when you're starting to get those early signs and someone is informing you, your cholesterol is a little high on your labs, that is the time. And that can become the #1 reason why. And here's the biggest reason why. How many pills would you like today? That's what I ask patients.
Exactly. Yes.
And most say none.
None.
None. So there's a way for you to have better health with less medicine, but you have to take the steps. And I'm here as a champion cheerleader to cheer you on and to coach you into how you can do it with simple solutions easily. So we get to the why. Why is this important? Oh, I don't want to take medications. So that's a good reason why. That's a good place to start. And then what I do is I show you a first step that you take in your first week. And what it does is it changes your body's biochemistry so that you don't want it. Because after all, sugar is a want.
Yeah. It's
not a need, it's a want. And then I show you some of the emotional reasons why you do want it. Because what are we trying to sweeten in our lives?
Yes.
Right? And so those are the first 2 steps. And then, around by the 3rd week, you know what you can't do. And you start to feel pretty good about, you know what, I don't even want it, because I've changed your body's biochemistry with what we did in the first 2 weeks so that you don't desire it. And why would you eat something that you don't even want?
Yeah.
Right? And then I give you food solutions, foods that you can eat to replace what you've gotten rid of.
So it sounds like it is a nutrition education process.
It is.
Preventive nutrition.
Exactly. And so we're not talking about food that fuels and feeds. I call the body the vehicle, this one body that you get to drive. You're the driver. If we don't talk about the food that fuels it for optimal performance, we're not talking about health.
Yeah.
Right? So and I love it. And those who have taken the steps, they've acknowledged, I need to do something different. And then they come to me and I give them a plan and how we're going to intervene on making the change. And once they decide, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, there's a willingness to make the commitment. And then even when it gets tough, because there's some rough spots that people go through, and
like Halloween. And Thanksgiving.
Right.
And stressful days. I remember when I was full-time working, literally saying at the end of the day, I'm gonna have to go get some candy now. This is a 2 candy bar day. Just as someone would say, I'm going to have a couple of drinks.
Right, right.
It is just like that. You're trying to sweeten your reality.
That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to and we talk about that. We you know what? And we just put that on the table as as this is my real life. This is what's happening here. And it could be anything from the workplace to the home. And we just identify it. And here again, once again, just identifying the reason, because I believe once we get to the cause, we can get closer to the cure.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And so only then.
I use my own self with everything I'm teaching in all of my programs as the test subject.
Mm-hmm.
Even as much as I feel like I've adopted some great behaviors and some good habits over my lifetime, what can I do? So before writing the program, I did the whole program, the entire program. I put it in play. I wrote it week by week. Here's what I'm going to do. And here's how I believe it can make a difference. And then I added some test subjects along the way to people who wanted to try it. But and what I did every week, I did exactly what I was telling others to do, because I believe it's really time for doctors to not just treat you, but teach you how to be well. So absolutely. I feel like I'm the teacher.
Yeah.
And I did it, and I looked up, and several weeks later, I was losing weight. And after I put it in place, and then I show you, week 4, I show you how to keep it in place. It's not that you'll never eat a candy bar again. I show you what kind of candy bar you can eat.
I saw one on your website.
All right. Okay. Okay. I show you what you can eat. It's not that you'll never eat a piece of sweet potato pie again, but I say if you are going to have something sweet, you learn to make it exceptional. Something that you truly love. That sweet potato pie that no other person can make. That pound cake. Okay, I'm telling on myself. Okay. that pound cake. I don't make pound cake, but when I find somebody who does make the great pound cake, it's on. But you can eat it. I show you how to eat it, because it's not always what you eat, it's how you eat.
Yeah.
That makes a difference to how it's metabolized. And then I show you what you can do when you slip and slide occasionally, and how you can get back on track really easily. And then you have all the tools. You have all the tools to do that. So it becomes a habit, your new habit.
Yeah.
And you don't want it.
Yes.
You just don't want it. So in that process, I lost 20 pounds. 22, I'll say between 20 and 22 pounds. And that was 2 years ago, and I've kept it off.
Interesting. Well, seeing is believing, because you look fabulous, and I can actually vouch for the fact that you look younger now than 10 years ago when I saw you. And actually, I don't think you look any older than when I met you in maybe that was 30 years ago. I think it's incredible. I think it is a true testament to the power of right living, good nutrition, and we all just need to get a little more, I think, savvy first about how to do things differently. Maybe that's second, because first is really acknowledging that we have a problem, and acknowledging that there's some things happening to us that are not and never were inevitable, but they're happening for a reason. And then of course getting the knowledge to put some behaviors in play that we're going to make a difference. So this has been wonderful, Dr. Lori. We've not finished. I want to just call this part 1. Definitely of this conversation. Were you going to show me something, and then we'll take a pause?
Say, as my sister and my dearest friend, because we have known each other you are like one of the true people in my life that I have known the longest of my adult life.
Yeah, because I can say for sure it's been at least 37 years because, or 34 years because of, I can age based on my children. Yeah, my children's ages.
So when you are ready, okay, because I know you're getting ready to be ready.
And I'm getting scared just hearing you about to say this.
Okay, when you are ready, okay? all for you. I don't know
Simple
how this is.
solutions. Oh, wow. That's your
Okay.
workbook.
This is the workbook that
And
I
people
take
can
you
find
through.
it online, drlaurieanes.com or no?
So they have to do the full program.
Yeah,
with
they
you.
do the program. Yes, they
Yes,
find the
but
program online.
you actually get a download of this. You get the
Yes.
download so that it's on your computer once you
Right.
sign up and decide to do the program. And then
Yeah.
if you want and then I send you in the mail, once we're working together, I send you in the mail the hard copy. So you have no excuse but to
Yes.
keep it in your kitchen.
Exactly.
Beautiful. Be strong.
Wow. I love it. I love it.
Okay.
Well,
So,
you know, I am definitely going to get on the program. As much as I love that Amy Winehouse song, they wanted me to go to rehab, but I said no, no, no.
and I'm going to say yes, yes,
Yes,
yes.
I think we need to write a new song, you know, about going to rehab, because the reality is, who doesn't want to be free? Who does not want to be free? Have,
Woo!
you know,
You
like
have
that
said
is,
my word.
yes,
Freedom
it's freedom.
and and a flexible life.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
I believe, because I'm a yogi and I do yoga routinely and have for many years, but a flexible body means a flexible mind.
Absolutely. And I'm totally into that. So this is part one of our conversation. We will take a pause here and make a plan for part two, because there's just so much more to say. Not just for me personally to hear, but really, I think there is a thirst for this kind of information that really empowers people.
Right.
And I think everybody wants to be free. And so we'll talk free from sugar and free from a lot of other things. So let me just put you on pause, and I'll come back in a second.
Yes.
See if I know how to work my computer.